Brooklyn.
Home is home.
Most of the nominees for Best Picture are fairly easy to sell.
A Cold War drama with Tom Hanks, directed by Steven Spielberg. Sold. A high-octane action movie that's a sequel to a well-known franchise. Sold. Intense wilderness epic directed by last year's Best Director, starring everyone's favorite Oscar-less actor. Sold. Drama about the investigation of a real-life news story that you definitely remember, starring people that you definitely recognize. Sold. Sci-fi action comedy starring Matt Damon. Sold. Black comedy about the housing crisis that we're still recovering from, starring 4 of the biggest stars in the world. Sold. It's indie, but it's also high concept with a good hook. What if Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt was a drama and Kimmy had a kid? Sold.
Yes. There was weird sex stuff in the bunker.
Let me finish.
So it's like the 1950s, and like this Irish girl immigrates to America, and like she's really sad and stuff because she misses home, but then she like meets a guy or whatever, and then she can't decide if she wants to stay in America or go back to Ireland, and yeah.
And yet, I thought this one was considerably better than most of these. I'm as surprised as you are. In 1952, Ailish Lacey, played by Saoirse Ronan, is living with her mother and sister in a small town in southeast Ireland. Her older sister Rose gets in touch with a priest in New York and arranges for Ailish to move to Brooklyn in search of more opportunity and a better future. Ailish leaves her mother and sister behind, boards a boat for America, begins working at a department store and living in a boarding house, and becomes cripplingly homesick. But she begins to adjust, and she makes a promising life for herself in her new country, helped in no small part by a romance with an Italian-American guy named Tony, played by Emery Cohen. Just as things are looking perfect for Ailish, unforeseen circumstances force her to return to Ireland temporarily. While she's back visiting, she's courted by an old acquaintance, Jim Farrell, played by Domhnall Gleeson, causing Ailish to question where her home and her life truly are. Brooklyn is far better than it has any right to be. I said something similar last year about Whiplash, that it's a tough sell because the premise, a jazz drummer in music school with a dick teacher, doesn't do justice to how good it is. But I think the difference is that Whiplash actually has a great story derived from its so-so premise, and anything it's lacking in premise, it makes up for in plot. But not only does Brooklyn not have an exciting premise to pique your interest, it doesn't even have all that impressive of a story when you actually watch it. And yet, it's so great. Not to sound like a broken record, but the reason it's so great is because the characters are outstanding. The interactions between the characters are outstanding. It's kind of like the anti-Spotlight, which had a great story but sparse characters. Here, there's sparse story but great characters. They could literally make a 2-hour movie of Ailish just sitting around the dinner table with the other people in her boarding house, or walking the beach talking with Domhnall Gleeson's character, and I would watch the shit out of both of those movies. Everything about Brooklyn is just so damn charming. I was over an hour into the movie when I realized that I'd been unconsciously smiling for the entire runtime. It's just so easy to fall in love with the characters, you don't even realize how invested you're getting. And again, looking back on the story now, I'm surprised at how invested I was. The most interesting part of any story is conflict. But there's not really an antagonist in this movie. Screenwriter Nick Hornby joked in an interview that it's a movie about people being nice to each other. And in some sense, he's right. All of the conflict is internal, and Ailish deciding what kind of life she wants for herself. And I never thought that I would ever care so much about a 21-year-old girl deciding what she wants. Saoirse Ronan is marvelous as Ailish, and she's the only person with a prayer's chance of beating Brie Larson for Best Actress, as unlikely as that is. And her performance speaks for itself. Same for Emery Cohen. He is absurdly charming, and anytime he and Ronan are on screen together, it's beautiful. And the fact that the only other movie I've seen him in is The Place Beyond the Pines, where he plays the exact opposite of charming, makes his Brooklyn performance all the more impressive. But the one performance I want to single out is Domhnall Gleeson. Without saying too much, his character Jim Farrell is introduced at a time when both Ailish and the audience are poised to hate him. We want to hate him. We try to hate him. We're looking for any reason to hate him, and we never get it. Every line, every inflection, every glance. He is under intense scrutiny, and yet he disarms us. And Ailish. If that character or that performance is even slightly off, the third act doesn't work, and the whole movie doesn't work. Luckily, it does, and it does. It's possible that it may have rung truer with me personally, because like Ailish, I too recently left my home to move to a new city thousands of miles away. But regardless of whether or not it's your personal story, it is a lot of people's. America is a nation of immigrants after all. So if you live in America, chances are, at some point, one of your ancestors had an experience similar to Ailish's, coming to a new country in search of a better life, because the life they were facing was stagnant or worse. And Ailish's move to America can be seen as a metaphor for any number of drastic life changes. Doing something scary and overwhelming in order to give yourself more opportunity for a better life doesn't always involve a physical move. For Ailish, it's less about the move and more about growing beyond the life that she was born into, and instead making her own life. Instead of timidly letting other people tell her what to do and how to live, which is definitely where she started. Even her move to America was facilitated by outside forces. By the end, she is definitive, confident, and powerful enough to control her own life. And while the decision is definitely hers to make, she must also reconcile the fact that whichever life she chooses, it's only as good as the people in it. Need to catch up on all the Oscar-nominated movies? Watch them with movies on demand from the comfort of your home through your local cable provider. Go to rentmoviesondemand.com for more information. And while you're at it, you can win free movies on demand if you can predict the Oscars. Go to mod.moviesondemandpool.com and use the pool login information in the description below to join my personal Oscar prediction pool. But to win, you have to beat me. Good luck and happy Oscar season.